2020, there was an organization that contacted me by email named the International Trade Council. The International Trade Council. And the International Trade Council had this fantastic event it was planning for. It was a virtual event where you could go into these virtual rooms and hear different presentations on different aspects of international trade, either by a company representative or an expert on some area of economics or commerce or e-commerce and so on. The International Trade Council itself is it's a kind of a chamber of commerce. It is designed to promote the interests of its members, which means basically promoting its members so that its members can meet other people who would be clients or investors or bankers or marketers or conduits to customers to buy what the business is selling. And the difference is that it did its job primarily, and it does its job primarily online. Yes, sure, they have events in Europe and every place else. But the one person who was my point of contact from the start, who I had the most exchanges with, it was Nolasco. Ron Nolasco of the Philippines. And Ron was always and is always and has always been a professional who has handled his job with aplomb. Well, sorry to say, Ron is leaving. He's going for another opportunity somewhere in the country that he's in, and he will be missed. And all this is happening while, as I'm told, the International Trade Council tries to figure out what it's going to do with my group, the International Trade Council's Digital Commerce Business Council. Uh, so, in turn, I'm in limbo because we haven't done anything or haven't been able to, and there's been a lot of turnover. So, hopefully, that all gets sorted out because the International Trade Council is something that is so needed that if it didn't exist, someone would have to create it. And we need people like the, the Ron Nolascos of the world to make organizations like the International Trade Council go. He is simply the glue. He, and not just he, I have to really give credit to another colleague that has been a person who's been outreach to me and a great deal of help, and that's Nita Escarla. So they are, I think, more like Batman and Robin in a sense, although I think more appropriately maybe it's, well, Robin can be an interchangeable name with a woman, right? There are women named Robin. So Ron is Batman and Nina is Robin. Batman and Robin. But unfortunately, Batman and Robin are splitting up, and so it's really a loss for all of us that Ron is leaving the organization. And Ron, I really thank you for all that you've done, and also bringing me into a fun atmosphere, particularly the first event, which drew 800 people. And I had the opportunity to give a virtual presentation. When I say virtual, I hesitate because you're actually giving the presentation and you're on a screen, but you're not in a real room. You're in a room that kind of is really a web page that is designed to kind of make you feel like you're in a room, right? I thought that was massively cool. And the software that they used to produce this environment, I meant to find that and download a copy for myself just so that I can have my own online conventions. And you know what? As I think about it, I'm going to go back to doing just that too. Because that was an idea. Like, you know what? This could be a business model, having my own online, Zennie62Media Comic Con, right? As opposed to having to travel every place. And the pandemic really gave us a lot of new technologies to use for a mobile. Oh, that's not quite true. For an online existence, I was going to say a mobile existence, but mobile implies movement. I'm talking about being able to be in one place and yet literally reach out to the world. I have never felt more connected with the world than I have during my time as a member of the International Trade Council. But even then, I'm wondering what's happening with my membership because they brought me in for free. They had me in a web page presenting my company and me with my photograph and gave me the role of chairing this group. And then things seem to just sort of like do that way down. Okay. Why? I I think it has to do with the International Trade Council is missing a something. And I think the something that it is missing is to have a kind of project or product that places it before where it wants to be, before world leaders. And as I think about it, I believe really what the International Trade Council is missing is something like a Davos style meetup. To do a Davos style meetup, but online, and bring the great business leaders, great economic analysts, great entrepreneurs, great elected officials, and great politicians together in a series of rooms, right? I think it's missing that. And maybe establishing that is the one key to driving up membership to the International Trade Council yet again. But they're shifting now to where I think the membership is going to become $1,000. I hope I'm wrong, as opposed to joining and being involved, right? That's a big difference. A lot of people fall off. And look, the world just doesn't need that right now. It just doesn't. It's really too bad that a lot of the activities that we've taken on or took on during the pandemic, we have, for the most part, either forgotten or if we remember them, we simply haven't sustained them. This is one of those organizations. But I digress. Ron, I really, really want to thank you for all that you've done. And I want to say to those of you who are part of our International Trade Council, Digital Commerce Business Council, let's meet again virtually, and let's be that shining light place that helps the organization grow, but also is just a lot of fun to be at. And I believe the way to go is to have personalities in that we interview that create an interesting exchange and bring others in, and we just virally go from there. Maybe instead of bringing one personality in, we bring several, and they can be experts in their field, in their area, known in a certain region. Doesn't necessarily have to be the United States, and could deal with, you know, some particular business topic in the news that's relevant to the operation of our businesses, like something going on with servers or whatever. It might sound a little boring. I don't want to do that, but out of such meetings come real change. And what I love about the International Trade Council is that the initial meetup that I was talking about, or convention, I think I'll also call it virtual convention, it really felt like the world was there. It really felt like people were there. And they had these virtual rooms you could go off and they had your little head in there. There's somebody else in there, and you could exchange texts, right? So, and it actually really worked. It really did. And I had a number of people who asked me questions about social media with respect to reputation management and the law. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I got a lot out of that. I got a lot of great contacts out of that, and that I have to continue to maintain, of course. Okay. So I think, and through all that, by the way, was Ron. And I don't know if Ron got any sleep. Ron, did you get any sleep during all that? Because it seemed like I could contact Ron almost any time of day or night. And I think part of that was because he contacted me, it seemed like almost every part of the day or night. And I think part of that reason is because he's in the Philippines and I'm here in the United States. And so we're literally kind of on, opposite sides of the earth, right? And so if you take those day parts and think about them in night parts, you think, okay, well, maybe it's 9 o'clock and I'm up 9 p.m. And then, hey, he's 8 hours ahead. Well, yeah, more than 8 hours ahead. He's so far ahead that he's into the next day. Yeah, he's so far ahead that he's into the next day. Um, that was fun. And then there were people that I met who were in, let's see, Singapore, Hong Kong. I mentioned the Philippines, of course, India, and London in particular. Yes, London. So, International Trade Council lives up to its name. It is truly an international group that is focused on trade with respect to your business. And that also includes who you are as a person, getting to know people, making friends, and establishing new paths for your business, along the way. And the other thing I loved about it was that you were free of the American-based political arguments because the world stage is different. Now, because we haven't met, we haven't seen, and I haven't seen how the world was discussing the whole Trump situation. Uh, and I know it is not good, and it's depressing because he's been that kind of president in his second term, eh? But what I can say is, more often than not, people in the International Trade Council are of one mind, literally, in terms of how they think about what president is doing. And so the question is, okay, how do we navigate our businesses to work better in this crazy environment where Trump is throwing off tariffs like they're, you know, gifts or bombs, whichever the case may be, or saying something else that destabilizes a market that you happen to benefit from, right? And so next you're like, oh my God, I wish this guy would just like can it and stop doing that and everything else. And you're like, what do I do? Well, I'll tell you what you do. You come and you join the International Trade Council and you tell the International Trade Council that you want the maintenance of the Digital Commerce Business Council chaired by Zennie Abraham. That's what you tell them, okay? That's what you tell them. And say, hey, you mean it. Um, and that you will show up to every meeting. Not that we had many. Um, but we did converse, text exchange, a fair amount. A fair amount for a time. But it seemed like as the more we got out of the pandemic, the less that stopped because more you had people going to the bricks and mortar approach of getting on a plane to be at an event. Well, I'm caregiving for my mom, so that's been a very difficult thing to do for me. And some people understand that, some people don't. So there you go. All right. I think, again, it's appropriate to say at this time, Ron, God bless you, and thank you for all that you've done for me and all that you've done for the International Trade Council. All right. Subscribe to Zennie62 on YouTube and bookmark ZennieReport.com. That ends this broadcast. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.